by taking roll. Jennifer, you want to call each person's name?
Sure, no problem. Chair Bradfield, I believe is still working on entering the meet. We'll count him absent until he arrives. Vice Chair Freeman.
Here.
Commissioner Dawson.
Here.
Commissioner Fletcher.
Here.
Commissioner Latassa.
Here.
On time. Okay. I know we had a scheduling issue.
How about Commissioner Reed?
Commissioner Milich and also Commissioner Reed.
Commissioner Milich is here.
Okay, and then Commissioner Reed.
I'm here. And can we ask everybody to mute their mics if they're not speaking?
Yes,
Good
please.
idea.
And I believe Commissioner Mike Brathfield just entered.
Excellent.
Welcome, Chair.
Oh, sorry. You're right. The chair. I apologize. Take it away, Chair, then.
Are we waiting for Mike?
He was singing.
I just saw his email address enter the meet.
I saw him. I saw the visual. And it looks like he's unmuted.
Chair Brathfield, are you present?
Well, Andy, you want to get us started?
All right, let's get started then. The meeting has been called to order, and are there any absences? Terry, you're here. I think we're all present. The first item is a consent item, which is approval of the minutes for July the 14th, 2020. Are there any comments about the minutes? All right, hearing none, may we have a motion to approve the minutes?
This is Commissioner Reed. I move to approve as submitted.
Is there a second?
This is Mike Dawson. I second the motion.
All right. The motion has been made to approve the minutes for July the 14th. Can we have a roll call on approval or not?
Of course. Chair Brathfield? I'm not sure. We got confirmation that he's here. I will count him absent for this vote.
Okay.
He's there.
He is here?
Yeah, he just needs to unmute.
Yes, huh?
Chair Brathfield, can you unmute yourself?
Guess not.
I wonder if he might be on a phone call. If you're participating through phone, you unmute with *6.
I don't see him on my list, so Ms. Hanson.
The list, but I haven't had visual. I would say, and Vice Chair, you can correct me if this seems wrong, but I would say count him absent until we hear from him.
I think that that's about what you can do because we have a number of people who are ready to participate. And Mike, when you get in, just let everybody know. On tonight's agenda, we have 3 items: 260 Lane Street for H2 historic zoning, 458 Alvarado Street, a use permit, and policy guidance for priority B area of window on the bay. Let's start the meeting with.
I don't think we voted
with public comments for.
We haven't
items.
voted. We haven't voted on the minutes, Dave, have we?
No.
You can see how confused I am.
I'm sorry.
Let's take a vote now on the minutes to approve or not. If you would just read the names of the members, Jennifer, and we're voting on approving the minutes.
Vice Chair
Absolutely.
Freeman, the chair has arrived, just FYI.
Yes.
Chair Brathfield.
And if we may, could we have a roll call to see who's attending?
Absolutely. So we did have a roll call to see who's attending, and I did just count you present at 4:07 p.m. Everybody else is present. So now I will do the roll call vote for approval of the minute. The first is Chair Brasfield
Yes.
and Vice Chair Freeman
Yes.
and Commissioner Dawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Fletcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Latassa,
Yes.
Commissioner Milich,
Yes.
and Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
All right, that motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to thank Ms. Clary for allowing me to connect where it was due to a couple of issues. Thank you. The first item on the agenda, I think we're going to have a staff report. Oh, excuse
What
me.
about
Let's go
public
back.
comment?
That's what I was just going to say. Let's go back to public comment.
We do have a new call-in number for public comment, and this allows us to not require a conference ID. So our public comment protocol is getting a little more streamlined. So that dial-in number is 831-582-6500. Once you enter the call, please press *5 to raise your hand, and that lets us know that you're ready to speak. So when public comment opens, we can open it up for you. Once again, that dial-in number is 582-6500. Thank you.
And if you would, give us your name and appreciate your calls.
Public comments not on the agenda.
Well, if we put it on the agenda, hopefully someone can make a comment, but
And
you will have to fix that.
Absolutely. I'm sorry about that. And I'm currently seeing no public comments right now.
Okay. If we have one, would you let me know?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair.
So if we would, let's go to our first item. A staff report is be appreciated.
Okay, certainly. Let me share my screen here. Can everyone see my screen? Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Sorry, I saw a bunch of thumbs up.
Oh, great. My name is Christy Sabdo. I'm Associate Planner with the City of Monterey. Property owners John and Donna Wagner are requesting a rezone of the property as a city historic resource at 260 Lane Street. Staff is recommending the Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending City Council adopt an ordinance to rezone the property from R35 to R35H2. The property is located on Lane Street in New Monterey. The zoning designation is R35 and the general plan designation is medium density residential. An intensive survey was prepared by architectural historian Seth Bergstein, who's online here today with us. The intensive survey reports that in 1912, the existing 1 1/2 story vernacular cottage style house was constructed. In 1940, a flat roofed garage and a connecting breezeway was added to the house. And in 2015, wood windows were restored by the current owners. And the architect and builder are unknown. So I'm just gonna, since we couldn't do a site visit, I'm just going to share with you a number of pictures. So this is the front or south elevation along Lane Street. The house is wood framed and has a compound gable and hip roof with flared eaves. The hipped roof front porch has square columns with brackets and is centered on the front elevation. The finish of the house is a wall cladding and shiplap wood siding with corner boards. Here's the south and east elevation showing a breezeway and the flat roof garage. Here's a close up here on the south elevation. And the existing garage was constructed in the 1940s in a utilitarian style that does not match the architectural style of the home. It's flat roofed with a tongue and groove horizontal wood siding. And the garage doors have vertical boards. And then you can see the north elevation at the lower corner here, and they have windows on the back of the garage. And there's a mixture of infill wood siding for more recent repairs of the garage. The garage is in poor condition with inadequate foundation and structural support, walls out of plumb, and insect and fungal damage to the existing wood elements. The 1940s breezeway connects the garage with the first floor of the existing house. Here's the rear of the residence. As you walk to the back of the property, the lot slopes steeply to the north with views of the bay. You see the two-story wood porch. Fenestration of the house consists of 1/1 double hung wood sash windows with flat-board wood surrounds and pedimented hoods. Let's see, close up here. Let's see. So the property is known as the Canepa Residence. It qualifies as a local historic resource based on California Register Criterion 1 and 3. So the house is eligible under Criterion 1, which states that the house is associated with events that have made a significant contribution to the broad patterns of local or regional history or the cultural heritage of California or the United States. And in the intensive survey, it was stated that the Canepa family represents multiple generations of Italian immigrants. The house was constructed for Giovanni and Agostina Canepa, who arrived in Monterey from Italy in 1908. Giovanni brought his Italian fishing roots to the Monterey Bay and was employed in Monterey's growing fishing industry. Canepa family represents multiple generations of Italian immigrants that played an important role in the Monterey fishing industry. And the family resided in New Monterey, where many Italians developed as a residential area above the canneries from the 1900s to 1950. That property is also eligible under Criterion 3, which states that embodies the distinctive characteristics of a type, period, region, or method of construction, or represents the work of a master or possesses high artistic values. And this property is significant under the category as an intact representative example of the vernacular cottage style in New Monterey. The house retains most of its original character defining features listed in the context statement for New Monterey and maintains all 7 aspects of historic integrity. So here's background on a new addition that was approved by the ARC. On March 4th, 2020, the Architectural Review Committee approved the demolition of the existing garage and construction of a 3-car garage with living space above the garage as shown here. The addition will remain connected, but if you see the circle with the cross through it, that part will not be, it's not a part of the approved addition, but it will have that new open deck that you see here that connects the addition with the existing house. The finishes include the wood siding, although, so just to summarize kind of how it will be differentiated is, oh, I have a new slide. The addition will be differentiated in 2 ways. Wood siding, the new addition will have 7-inch wood siding, and the existing home has 4.5-inch wood siding. And the roof pitch is different between the new addition and the existing home as shown here. There was a phase 2 historic assessment that was prepared by qualified architectural historian Seth Bergstein, which concludes that this new proposed addition, well, proposed, it was approved, but that it meets the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. So in terms of the proposed historic zoning, it is eligible for this H2 zoning. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution that recommends the City Council adopt an ordinance rezoning this property as a city historic resource to R35H2. I did want to mention that we received a public comment letter dated August 9th, 2020. You should have received this letter. It's from Joanne Christ. And I'm going to summarize some of the main points of the letter and staff's response to those. So one of the comments is that the history of the Canepa family and their generations of fishing in Monterey is by no means unique. And criterion 1 doesn't mention it has to be unique. It just says it has to be associated with events that have made a significant contribution to regional or local history. And in the New Monterey Reconnaissance Survey, it does in numerous places state that commercial fishing, canning and processing were primary drivers of Monterey's economic prosperity in the first half of the 20th century, and that Monterey's fish industry was built around a large seasonal workforce drawn from a variety of ethnicities and genders. The comment on the letter as well says, the June 1st, 2020 report prepared for the city does not address how the house differs from its original construction. And I just wanted to touch on how the original house is different from the existing home today that has been rehabilitated by the new owners, the Wagners. So the home has been rehabilitated consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards in the following ways. The brick chimney was removed from the kitchen. A chimney chase was added to the northeast side of the house, facing a garage for a gas fireplace. And it does have the 7-inch wood siding, which is different from the original house. There were two double hung windows from the rear of the house that were in good shape, and they replaced 2 double hung windows at the front of the house that were in poor condition. And that's allowable with the Secretary of Interior standards. And there is a new paint color on the house. So that's how the house differs now. The Wagners spent a lot of time rehabilitating the house. The house was in poor condition. Another comment was that the Architectural Review Committee was not clear on whether the addition would be a separate structure, would receive a new address, and has sufficient water credits. So the addition approved by the Architectural Review Committee involves the demolition of the 1940s garage, which is built subsequent to the original house. So it was not part of the original home. The addition would be a separate structure on the same property, connected by an outdoor elevated breezeway, as I showed earlier. The addition would have the same address. It would be at the same property. And prior to building permit issuance, they will be required to provide evidence of water credits. Another comment is the cost of the building, the addition should not be included in the expenses included in the Mills Act maintenance schedule. The Mills Act maintenance schedule is reviewed by the Historic Preservation Commission. They have recommended approval of the Mills Act, and then it will move on to the City Council. But just to respond to this comment that the cost of the addition are not or maintaining the addition are not included in the Mills Act maintenance schedule. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions, and the owners and John and Donna Wagner are online, and so are Seth Bergstein, the architectural historian.
I have a question, Mike Dawson.
Hi.
I had to download the packet, and I noticed that packet page 38 through 42 were either not readable or upside down or damaged in some way or another. That's kind of poor planning. I don't know whose fault that was, but I'd really like to see all the pages of the presentation.
Okay. Andy, how do you suggest?
Well, Christy, I believe that, yes, that was for this project, right? So,
Mhm.
so you have those at your fingertips. Is that right? Would you be able to open up whichever documents were, that got a little mixed up in the printing, in the packaging of the packet?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I don't need to see them now. I mean, I could get the gist of the plans from the other plans, and it's just that not having that isn't really, you know, it's unprofessional. I'd really rather see everything once.
Understood. And Commissioner Dawson, we do strive with several eyes on the packet when we put it together, and I apologize that this one didn't come together perfectly. We do work hard to make that happen, and sometimes it slips through the cracks. I apologize.
Aye.
Are there any more questions for staff? Okay. I know that the
I see
and Seth are here.
Then
Vice Chair,
yeah.
Vice Chair Freeman is speaking.
Since there's no questions.
I see
don't we-
Vice Chair
I
Freeman.
I had one question.
Whoa.
Is the normal procedure for any application for the Mills Act to go first to the Historic Preservation Commission, then to the Planning Commission, then to City Council? Are all of these bodies required to approve?
Yes, that is correct. And it goes to City Council twice for the reading of the ordinance. There's two
Okay.
readings of the ordinance.
Very
Because it is
interest-
a
It's interesting that they would choose to connect the two buildings in any way. When we did exactly the same project, which is a 1940s garage that didn't impact the historic quality of the home, we were told to keep the buildings as far apart as possible and not to connect them if possible. And I just wondered where the desire was to connect the two buildings.
the buildings were connected initially,
Uh-huh.
and we were able to, I'll speak on behalf of the ARC because I did lead that meeting, and we were able to separate the buildings as much as possible given the zoning on the site.
Okay. It's just
And I understand that the buildings were separated prior to this application, so it's not like we're trying to fix an existing issue. Is that correct?
They actually were connected. They're, Christy, could you bring up that visual again, please?
Sure.
And I should say are connected. I don't think this remodel has not been completed yet, has it?
No.
Keeping in mind, of course, that I was hoping, Christy, that you could show us an example of what is existing.
Oh, picture of the existing house.
Hmm.
Let's see, sorry.
There you go. That's
So
the-
similarly, there will only be a deck that connects the two buildings. It's just that the deck will extend in a wider expanse.
okay.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff? Thank you, Sandy. Then do we have a presentation by the applicant? Or comments?
Yeah. I don't have a presentation. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. I can add though to the question of the distance from the existing house, and Andy could speak to this as well. We had a neighbor who had concerns over the viewport, and to accommodate their concern, we basically made a port for them by separating it as far as we could, without encroaching in the side yard setbacks on the other side. So we tried to accommodate the neighbors. We changed the gable of the roof. And then in the presentation, it said a 3-car garage. And as you can see, though, it's actually the width of a 2-car garage. It's just a deep 2-car garage. So we point is we accommodated as many concerns as we could, and I think we did a pretty good job. And so that was the reason why it is further than it currently is. The one thing I can say, just to emphasize it, the Canepa family, several generations, which many of you probably know some of them, I would imagine. When we bought the house, their concern was whoever bought the house was going to tear it down, because it was to say it was in poor shape is an understatement. It was a mess. And we bought it with the intention of doing what we did. We really loved it, and so we decided to take on the project. And since then, we probably have had no less than 20, 25 family members at times just knocking on our door randomly and introducing themselves, and would you mind if we took a look, and literally walking through the house in tears and sharing stories of where they, used to comb their grandmother's hair, where grandpa used to do his Bible study in the corner, where he would baptize people in an old wine barrel underneath the house. I mean, and we heard all the stories, and we since are regular invitees to their family reunion every year. They're thrilled with what we did to their house, and with the family themselves. I know there was, and Donna could speak a little bit to it. One of them, I think, was Teresa, started a church. Another one was on the school board. One of the members was literally like a golf caddy at Pebble Beach for like over 40 years. Not just the fishing industry, but I think a family of that size had tremendous influence and tremendous in many different areas of, a relatively small community. So that's my piece on the Canepa family.
Thank you. Ma'am, you have a comment? Okay, let's open it up for public comment.
Again, that call-in number is 831-582-6500. You will be muted upon entry and press *6. Sorry, that was *5 to let us know that you're ready to speak. Right now, we do not have any public comments, but I've confirmed the delay on YouTube can be up to about 30 seconds.
Wait a couple seconds, and you can let us know if someone calls in. Let's bring it back to the commission for their comments.
So this is Hansen. I'll start. The house looks phenomenal. It's amazing. I wish there would have been some pictures of. Let me put my camera on. Sorry, I forgot my camera. There I am. I wish that you would have had some before and after pictures, just so that we could see how good the remodel really is. I think you guys, the owners, have done a phenomenal job. I think the fishing industry and the historic aspect of it is very important to the Monterey Peninsula. The Canepa family is tied to the Monterey Peninsula. And it's super important. For me, growing up on the Monterey Peninsula, there is a book called Hermit the Kermit. If everyone, some people might know that, but that shows a small. It's basically it's about Hermit the Kermit, but it shows a lot of New Monterey, and I'm motioning because New Monterey's over there to me, and small poor fishing village, and to me that house, although it looks great, reminds me of those houses back in Hermit the Kermit. So it's a local author. Everybody, if you don't know it, you should read it. So it's a great story about the Monterey Bay. So I strongly support this. I think there's no reason not to do it. So
I echo your remarks. I drove by it today, and I was very, very impressed with what they had done. It must be a double lot. There's plenty of room for the additional building. It'll just round the whole thing out. It's so well done.
Any other comments?
This is Terry Latassa. I agree with Hansen. the Italian, Sicilian, American community in Monterey, especially New Monterey, was so important in the 20th century. I don't know how anybody could dispute that. I think Seth Bergstein in his report was absolutely right. It's just a hugely important part of Monterey's history. And the Canepa family, I know 3 different generations of them, and some of them have passed on. I know Teresa Canepa was, I think, on the city council for a long time. So it's, I agree on the basic qualifications for this historic designation, and I'm in full support of the project.
Mike Dawson, I have to point out that the HPC, the Historic Preservation Commission, was unanimous in approving this. So we should be watching them.
Thanks, Mike. Any other comments? Okay.
Okay, so this is do you have comments, Mike? Sorry.
Yeah, I do
Okay,
have
sorry.
one comment. I agree with what was said, but one of the intentions of the Mills Act was to hold these treasures close. And so I appreciate the family spent an awful lot of time and energy to bring back this local treasure. And so I would solicit now a proposal for where we're going to take this.
So this is Hanson Reed. I move that we recommend to City Council to adopt an ordinance rezoning the property at 260 Lane Street from R35 to R35H2 pursuant to the resolution that's in our packet.
Second the motion.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion before a vote? Okay, then I'll call for the vote. If you would, a roll call.
Absolutely. Chair Brassfield,
Yes.
Vice Chair Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Dawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Fletcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Latassa,
Yes.
Commissioner Milich,
Yes.
and Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Thank you. That was unanimous.
Thank you. Any other questions before we move on to the next item? Thank you. And we will have a staff report on the next item.
I guess Chair Brassfield, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Is this appealable? I can't remember how that works, or it just goes to the city council.
I believe it's appealable within 10 days. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
No, I don't think that this is it's not an
No.
appealable decision
Yeah,
because we're not making a final
Yeah,
decision.
we're making a recommendation.
So it just goes to the
Yeah, we're
council.
recommendation. So yeah, thank you, Terry, for bringing it up. So, Andy, you doing the next presentation?
No, the next one is Fernanda.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Fernanda.
Hi, my name is Fernanda. I'm a senior associate planner for the city of Monterey, and I will present my screen now. Okay. Great. Thank you. All right, so this next project is for 458 Alvarado Street. It is a use permit for an assembly major use, and the business name is called Board and Brush. This is an image of the site. It's located on Alvarado Street in the downtown. The 458 Alvarado used to be a dress shop, but the proposed use is instructional services, including art workshops for 20 to 36 people at a time. And as you can see in the bottom screen, I circled the dress shop that used to be there. And this assembly major use requires a use permit per our downtown specific plan. The proposed assembly major use, Board and Brush Studio, would offer art workshops to the public. It would also offer private workshop parties. And it would also offer beverages available for purchase, and anyone from the street, the sidewalk, can walk in and buy pre-made art and branded merchandise. The proposed operations are business hours would be 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. The number of employees would be a maximum of 6 at a time, and the workshops would be we would have 3 to 6 workshops during the week, 2 to 4 during the weekend, and private events interspersed in between. And this is a floor plan of the 458 Alvarado commercial space. As you can see, you would be able to enter and sit at one of the 6 tables, and there would be a maximum of 6 people per table engaging in the art classes. And then there would be toward the back of the studio, there would be a wood supply area and a bathroom. And so this use meets the Planned Community Downtown Zoning District land use regulations because the proposal is an active commercial use, which is classified as assembly major. The existing tenant space, it's there, and there would be no building expansion required. There would just be minor interior modifications. The downtown specific plan has no minimum. The downtown specific plan has no minimum parking requirements, therefore the applicant doesn't have to provide any. And the proposed use would not be detrimental to the public welfare or city because, again, it's a use that would take the space of an existing tenant space and no parking is required. Therefore, there would be no impacts to adjacent businesses or the city. And so staff's recommendation is approval of the project. I can take questions now. Thank you. Also, the applicant, I think Paul Davis representing the applicant as well as Anthony Davi Sr. are here. They can answer questions.
Just one quick question. What is in the enclosed chain link fence behind the retail space? Is that part of parking or is that part of the building?
Did you see that in the map?
No, I saw it driving down Calle Principal at the back of the building.
Sandy, I believe it's just this is Hanson. I believe it's just the roof. So that's just, it's, the roof is that part that goes underground and it is just to keep people off the lower part of the roof.
Okay.
That's all it is. That's all it is.
Thanks, Hanson.
And Anthony Sr. can clarify that more. But growing up there, that fence has been there for my all 52. I think all 52 of my years of my life. So I've always seen that there.
Nice to see you've been cognizant that long of that. Any other questions of staff? Okay, then let's see if we have any questions or a presentation by the proposers.
Hello, this is Paul Davis. Do you hear me?
Yes, sir, we do.
All right, great. Well, it's Chair, Commissioners, staff. It's good to see you. No, let me see. It's good to listen to you. Over my years of being on the commission, I would have never thought it would be a phone in, but I appreciate the city being able to carry on a business and appreciate assisting Jennifer and Tom and their request for a board and brush here at 458 Alvarado. I'm excited about this new business in downtown, especially during the time that we're in, and that a new business can come in and fill an empty spot. It's a new type of business and experience that I think will bring a variety of locals downtown. And really what I want to do is just at this point introduce Tom and Jennifer, who are also online, to maybe present a little bit more what the business is like, and would be able to present or answer any questions you have regarding the business. So Tom, Jennifer, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great.
Can you see me? Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm the one opening the board and brush. It's a new, like Paul said, kind of a new idea for this area. There are 270 in the United States, and I would be the 16th location in California. So It's a DIY wood sign workshop where you would come and build a sign to take home. And we provide all the raw materials, all the paints, the stencils, and then you get to leave with the project. And it takes 3 hours. It's a flat rate for each project. And there's a few other things that we do, like doormats. There's a new bench. There's planter boxes. They come out with updated stencils and ideas and projects every month. And you sign up online and then come to the studio for a class. And I would have instructors, and it's a hands-on, instructor-led workshop. So it's a good chance of success. And the model was built around just kind of girls and guys getting together for a night of fun. And downtown Monterey is great for having a drink or dinner or lunch before the class or after the class. So I've been to both the Walnut Creek and Livermore locations, and they are located on kind of their main streets and are really conducive to supporting their local businesses and activities. And so I think Alvarado would be a great location for this.
Well said.
Any questions? I do have one question. In this COVID-19 time, your occupancy seems to be a little crowded. You would probably have to modify that.
I will. The other studios are remaining with 6 feet apart in their guests, and my tables are long, so I could fit 2 at a table, and alter that in any way needed. But we also have all kinds of pre-made projects that can be purchased. In this time, Board and Brush has also had to modify and come out with different ways to sell, and they have lots of take-home kits now. And there are online video classes too that can be done. But it's something that you could send a link out to your girlfriends or friends in another part of in the state or country and do a DIY workshop together online. But there's merchandise that I'll have for sale, but there'll be take-home kits and kid kits and things like that that can still keep my doors open while we wait for the ratio to come back up.
Thank you. Any last questions or other questions? If not, then let's go to public comment. Jennifer, do we have any public comment?
There are not any public comments currently, but I will share that number again. It is 582-6500. There is about a 30-second delay, so we can wait for a little bit, but right now I see nobody.
Okay, if you would let me know if we have some, and then otherwise I'll bring it back to the commission for comments.
So this is Hanson again. I think this is an exciting opportunity for downtown Monterey to bring more people to downtown Monterey. I think the businesses, the restaurants, everything will be impacted and positively impacted by them. I know Tom and Jennifer, they're wonderful people. I strongly encourage this.
Other comments?
Hi, I'm Dave Fletcher here. I like the idea of use diversity, and that's what this use represents to me. So I'm in full support of the project.
Thanks, Dan. Steve, you have any comments?
I have one comment.
So once in my career, no.
When you have a main street that becomes restaurant dominant, it's hard for the foot traffic to bring money to other retail. And so diversifying the retail offerings on Alvarado Street is, I think, super important. This is a great location for such a business. It's very visible. And I think you're going to be a great success.
Great, thank you.
This is
Any other
Terry.
comments?
I agree with what's been said. I really like the way you can see into the store from the sidewalk. It will add a lot of sort of dynamic to the pedestrian experience, and it's really everything you hope for in a main street like Alvarado.
Thank you. I have one comment, and that is I'm glad to see someone coming in with something different. That City of Monterey, I don't think we've ever had. Looking back at all the art facilities we've had, I don't recall ever seeing anything like this. So I wish you luck.
Thank you.
Endeavor. Okay, do we have a motion?
So this is Hanson. I move to approve use permit UP-20-0179 for an assembly major use at 458 Alvarado Street, pursuant to the resolution in the packet that was provided.
May I be allowed to second that?
Well, we have
something. I want to say second.
So
can I do that? Thank you.
Well done.
I believe we have a first and second, and people are fighting for first for second. But, Jennifer, do you have a list for first and second?
So that first I captured as Commissioner Reed, and the second was Commissioner Millich.
Thank you.
I did hear another one in there as well. I think that was Commissioner Fletcher.
If we could, let's do a roll call.
Absolutely. We have Chair Brassfield first.
Yes.
Vice Chair Freeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Dawson.
Yes.
Commissioner Fletcher.
Yes.
Commissioner Latassa.
Yes.
Commissioner Millich.
Yes.
And Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Thank you. That was unanimous as well.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
This is appealable, right?
Within 10 days, if you don't like it. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks.
Let's move on to our next in-line project.
So that would be me. Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners. My name is Andy Flower, Principal Planner here at the City of Monterey. And today I'm going to share with you a project that you'll notice the content with the staff report and here with my presentation. It's light on substance and big on graphics, and that's because it really is just a concept review. This has been bouncing around for some time now, and we thought, well, it's darn well time for this original applicant to hear word of where our Planning Commission may stand on this in the future. So with that, I will present. Let's see. Get to the beginning. So tonight, this presentation is purely for policy discussion, which is why we are in the public appearance section of the meeting. This is the project location, and this might be familiar to probably everyone. This is well, the area just north of Lake El Estero is Window on the Bay, and this is what was understood as Priority B of that Window on the Bay. It's zoned planned commercial waterfront, and the general plan is commercial. And I just want to clarify a few points. We got some comments, and I want to make sure that anyone watching tonight is very clear on what a concept review is. So tonight's presentation is applicant driven. The city is not proposing any changes to the Window on the Bay. This discussion is driven by applicants' requests and not at the will of the planning department. What the planning department is requesting is commission response to this concept review. And we want to let it be understood that there is an option to give a clear response that nothing should change. The goal is to give a clear message about whether there is any appetite for discussion. And just a reminder, this is democracy in real time. We are responding to a legitimate request with information and open discussion. And of course, we welcome all public comments. So here we have an aerial that shows window on the bay to the left and the two sites. The site on the right is the 1299 Del Monte Avenue. That was the first application that came in some time ago. And our former planning manager, Elizabeth Carricker, was first leading this effort, and worked also with our traffic engineers and came up with some ideas. So as far as this intersection, and we'll get to that later. This second application just came through this summer, and I thought, well, if we're going to take up the Planning Commission's time with a concept review, then let's bring both ideas together so that if there is some reimagining, we can think of it on a wider palette here. So here you can see Priority B area within the Waterfront Master Plan in the context of all of the planning areas. Here we show the zoning, the planned community waterfront at this location. It's commercial across the street, and behind that R3. And we've also got townhouses that are on the water just north of this site. You can see here too, we've got open space to the right. This is at the Sloat intersection, and just across the way here is the Naval Postgraduate School. A vision for windows on the bay. So this was drawn up, I think, in the 70s, but of course it was based on the 1939 master plan concept of having this promenade. The city has just been exceptional in acquiring these properties and opening it up, and really successful, of course, with our waterfront park. Part of the vision was also to have parking for access available in the area that did not have that same view shed. Here you can see with this image the properties, the subject properties for tonight's discussion are starred with blue stars here. You can see it's outside of the area that's considered as part of what is enabled to have this vista to the bay. These two sites also happen to be in safety zone number 4 with the airport, which comes with some prohibitions and it discourages certain uses.
A lot of uses.
Correct. But being in safety zone 4 is certainly different than being in 1 or 2. Which is in some part why there are numerous residential uses here within this safety zone 4. We've got mixed use just directly across the street, and we've got many single family homes that were of course constructed prior to those prohibitions, prior to that plan by the airport. In our Parks and Recreation Master Plan, you may notice that this was not in your in the agenda packet, but I discovered this between submitting that and tonight, so I thought I would share it. Here this area in red is the area that we're discussing this evening, Priority B, and so I was hoping to find more information about window on the bay. I knew I'd looked in this plan before, but I was happy to find that there was some reference. Although here again, it is a sort of a galvanizing concept with this proposed new parking lot. So again, access for the window on the bay. And this all brings us brings us to the attention of the Transportation Adaptation Plan, which is currently in progress. And that's our Senior Associate Planner, Fernanda Roveri, who's leading this effort right now with our consultants. And I don't know if commissioners had an opportunity to open up that that website, but there's within that just a wealth of information. And of course, we're still in the stage of garnering public comments. So I'm hopeful that maybe maybe this will help engage more people in that effort. So there are a number of ideas, and it's all really, I think, right now just in the stage of conceiving of all of the different ideas, and then garnering public input. There was a levee concept here surrounding the townhouses behind this priority B area. There's another idea to have a wall, a short wall here, and let's see, and of course new transit along the coastal area. And let's see, there was one other, this wider levee with gradual ecotone on water side. So that's what this green represents here. And let's see. Yes. I just wanted to share, yes, this image here with, so this is sort of a concept of maybe what the rec trail would possibly look like as both a trail and a wall. Yes, and if anybody has any questions about that during discussion, Fernanda has agreed to stay on to answer any of those. So property acquisition over time, of course, we have been just very successful in acquiring all of the properties for the Monterey Bay Waterfront Park. We've been a little less successful along the Priority B area. We have purchased one property, and I don't know where property purchasing falls on our priority list. Of course, post-COVID, I think we can all imagine where that is, but it has been part of our plan for a very long time. So any new development on these parcels shall be limited to the scale and intensity of existing uses. This is an important sentence because it is found in numerous regulatory documents. So this probably represents the biggest hurdle, or I should say, this is the galvanizing language that is used to enact the vision that was had back in 1939 and has permeated all of the numerous regulations. Of course, airport land use compatibility plan is outside of it, but primarily for these first two regulatory tools. Now, there would also be a requirement for any site within this area to get a coastal development permit, which of course has its own hurdles. It can't be overstated that probably the biggest policy challenge is that this is a long-standing vision, and the idea that the city might be ready, willing, or able to reconsider that vision is totally up in the air. But in many ways, the Planning Commission ends up being the gatekeeper of such an idea, because all of these projects would necessarily come to the Planning Commission in order to move forward with any regulatory change, which is again why we're first bringing it to you. So just to give a snapshot here, our applicants were kind enough to put together some renderings to help us visualize what their ideas are. And of course, it supports our goals for more affordable housing. But whether that's on balance with in keeping with our vision, that will be up to commissioners. So this site, it has 40 units, which is 20 studios and 21 bedroom units, 1,000 square feet of retail, and 33 parking spaces. All of the parking is on the ground floor, and there are no living spaces on the ground floor, which helps for any future inundation that may occur at the site. At this site, there are no bedrooms on the ground floor. There is some recreation portions of the house. So certainly one of the biggest advantages to the city, if this site were to be developed by this particular applicant, is that they have agreed to not only improve this intersection, but they've already also even invested in what that might look like to help again all of us visualize how this left turn lane could be made possible with this easement that this property owner is willing to make available to the city. And just to show the consequences over time, I believe this is data between 2015 and 2019, the numerous car accidents that have happened at this intersection. So staff recommendation is for the Planning Commission tonight to either give guidance for council to further consider, or to give a clear message that this is not going to receive Planning Commission support. So one way or another, staff's belief, our department's belief is that we just want to be fair to these applicants and give them a clear message about whether these projects, we want to make sure that they can, if they choose to move forward, that they can do so in a clear-eyed way with knowledge from tonight's meeting. So with that, I will stop sharing, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question, Dan Fletcher here. Andy, you mentioned about the project having residential not on the ground floor, but a story up for inundation. I'm assuming you're meaning sea level rise. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
So how does this all fit together? I mean, you know, conceptually, we could be saying, yeah, this is great for this location, and yet we have sea level rise projections that have been presented to Planning Commission that don't paint too good of a picture in this particular part of town. One of the strategies is to let things go, meaning, you know, you lose buildings and you don't replace them, and there's a new shoreline, basically. So as an applicant moves forward, that seems like that's a big question mark in terms of what will apply to an applicant. Is the city ready to look at projects in this area in light of what they have to do or come to understand about sea level rise?
Well, you're asking if the city's ready, and I just want to put a phrase out there: managed retreat. Is that's the concept that's being considered right now. And one idea that's been shared with us by one of the applicants is the possibility for bonding for if there were to be a disaster that would render a property, particularly if it were to render it dangerous, but if it were to render it uninhabitable, that there would be a bond in place for that removal to be sort of prepaid, so that we could be confident that it wouldn't become an eyesore or a hazard. But if the city were to go the other direction and to build this wall, then that would be a different environment for the building as well.
So how do you reconcile potential approval of projects in this area with the policy that hasn't yet been firmly set with regards to sea level rise?
Well, tonight, our goal is to bring it up for discussion. So this is exactly the kind of discussion I was hoping to have. Yes,
okay.
It does feel a little irreconcilable, but it, you know, at the same time, our Ms. Riveri is working towards resolving our answers for the transportation adaptation plan, and the timing could coincide if there were an applicant willing to take that kind of risk in pursuing it, if they felt that they had if they felt that they wanted to take that kind of calculated risk. So tonight's decision will factor into how risky of an endeavor that might be.
Thank you.
I have a question. How are the other properties in priority 2 or priority B? How are they working out? Or is that something that we can look forward to in the near future or in the far future or never?
How are they, you mean, how are they responding to this concept? Is that?
How are they in the life of those businesses? Because when the business goes away, then the Monterey has the opportunity to buy that spot.
Well, my understanding is it may well have been that we had the opportunity to buy the Burlwood site.
There was one, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we do own one of the sites, but right now we have a lease for multiple years still.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. But we have not received comments from any of the other business owners or property owners along that stretch.
Okay.
Is this time for discussion, or are we going to go back out? We're going to go out to hear from the property owners, and then public comment, and then come back. I just want to make sure that before we. Okay.
So far, this is questions, but it's going to be hard to go 2 ways.
This is Terry Latassa. I just have a few questions, sort of following up on what was just being discussed. So in your attachment 4, there's a note that note from architect, the property was recently sold and the city of Monterey had the opportunity to purchase it and declined.
Yeah.
Did you get any understanding of why the city declined?
Well, as that mentions, it was a note from the architect. So, and it does appear that Commissioner Dawson may have more information about that, certainly more than I do.
And can you clarify also this? So there are 2 different properties that we're looking at with this sort of. It's a big zoning kind of question, but there are 2 parcels, and I think there are 2 parcels. And
there's actually 3. One of the sites involves 2 parcels.
Okay, so the site that involves 2 parcels, are one of those parcels is still owned by the city but leased? Is that what you said?
No. All 3 parcels are privately owned.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. And they have representatives on the call today.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions of Andy? And let's
just one question. It was the city's plan to buy up all of those properties in between Sloat Avenue and the new existing waterfront park and extend the waterfront park to Sloat. Was that the original plan?
Yeah.
That we would purchase all of the property from Sloat to the Custom House. Mm-hmm.
Right. So that this would be the grand vision, so that east of Sloat or north of Sloat is all recreation trail, Department of the Navy. There's no housing, there's no commercial. This is just one tiny little strip left that could fill in from both sides and make it all recreation and parking and window on the bay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I did just receive a message from Jana Aldretti, and I'm assuming she sent it to me because she would like me to share it with in response to this question. So the city could not come to terms with the seller for 1299 Del Monte, and the concept is to buy as the properties become available, and there will not be any eminent domain, and just to be very clear about that.
Andy, what is the plans that other agencies have in this area? For instance, the bus line in that area, is that involved in the Part B?
I did learn today that there is some bus rapid transit plans, and we do have our transportation engineer, Andrea Rennie, on the phone available. Either she or Fernanda Riveri may be able to answer that question.
Appreciate it.
Chair Brassfield, Vice Chair Freeman, and Planning Commissioners. This is Andrea Rennie, City Traffic Engineer. Good to see you all. So for the bus line, the proposed surf bus line, that's going to be with mixed traffic on Del Monte. So it's going to use Del Monte Avenue as it is existing right now. And then TAMC would still preserve the rail right away behind the property.
But nothing through the middle of Part B?
Not as what we have planned now.
Because I believe that was originally set aside for majority of parking along Window of the Bay.
I think so.
Yep.
That's what it looked like. That's why I asked the question. So thank you. Any other questions? Let's open it up for the applicant or both of them, if there's more than one.
Mr. Barlow, would you like to go first?
Yeah, this is Christopher Barlow. Can everybody hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Great. All right. Well, good afternoon, members of the Planning Commission, and thank you to city staff for the excellent presentation. My name is Christopher Barlow. I'm principal at Wald, Runke & Dost Architects. And my firm's been fortunate enough to work on a number of projects in this area. Besides work with the city on the downtown plan, we actually did and I should preface this by stating right now, I'm the representative for 1299 Del Monte only. That's the project that's closest to the site. But I do think both of these projects do require a different vision for the city of Monterey in terms of how we view this waterfront area. In terms of, some of the discussions about the windows by the bay, I think it says a lot that this was priority B, and I was the architect that identified that the city wasn't able to come to terms on the purchase of 1299 Del Monte. The reason why I'm doing that is that I really want to highlight the opportunity that this site has to make some improvements for this section of the city. As you all know, even though the actual city boundary begins at Roberts Lake, there's a huge number of residents and visitors that enter the city from Del Monte, and I think this portion of the Del Monte is kind of like the spiritual gateway to the city from the east. And right now, I don't think that entrance is really what the city, how I'd like to think of the city, because right now it's just, essentially a lot of auto-oriented commercial uses. The big change that's being proposed here is basically to add a residential function to these to this row of buildings here. I do think that it's unlikely that the city would actually purchase all those parcels because there's just millions and millions of dollars of property represented there. But I do think that there's an opportunity for the city to work with private owners to really make this entrance into the city something really special. And my project that I'm proposing is essentially going to be it'll have 2 affordable units and a main residence for the owner. And I think really what we're looking at doing here is just presenting an image of the city, I'd say similar to, let's say, Santa Barbara. The Windows of the Bay has done an excellent job of opening all the view sheds to the ocean. 1299 Del Monte still sits behind a probably 40-foot high sand dune. So there's not, there's not that same opportunity for the direct view. But it is the point where the rec trail turns inland and starts to go towards the ocean. It is the point where a ton of traffic moves through there. And I think this project, because the property owner has signaled that they're willing to negotiate with the city to basically give up a fairly large amount of street frontage in order to create a third, essentially a third traffic lane on Del Monte, it could actually help save some lives as well, which is, very important, obviously. And we also have opportunity to, and I don't get too into detail in this concept review, but because the easternmost approach of the property is a triangle, we may also have an opportunity to improve bike and pedestrian access from the Sloat Avenue intersection onto the rec trail, because right now it's a pretty tight and less than desirable approach coming from that intersection. But I think so. I think really what we're looking for as applicants here is just the first off, a notion of, would the city consider a residential in this area? As you all probably know, the waterfront plan has zoned this area strictly as commercial oriented, I think it's visitor oriented commercial use. So that's the first big hurdle. I think it's really interesting discussion to bring up the sea level rise issue, because that's something we're all going to have to live with. The current design that we've anticipated is that we're essentially looking at, adaptation. If we don't look to the city to create walls for this property and settle the city with debt that way, I mean, whatever happens, we're planning to have the building where it can actually accommodate some flooding in the basement level, or the lower level, almost like dry flood proofing, where we'd allow the water to move through the building if in the unfortunate circumstance that we do have that issue. Won't be something we'll worry about hopefully in the next decade, but we'll have to plan for it. And that's I think in terms of the high level review, those are kind of the points I wanted to touch on. And I'd be happy to answer any questions from the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Andy, do we have another applicant wishing to make comments?
I thought we might, but it doesn't appear so.
Okay, then I'll open it up for public comment.
Sorry, had trouble unmuting. That public comment number is 582-6500. Once again, 831-582-6500. We currently have no public comment callers on the line.
Okay, again, if you would, let us know. And I'll bring it back to commission.
So this is Hunts, and I'll start since I've started everything else so far, and then next time somebody else can start. How about that? So my only comments are, I mean, I have some, I'm not looking at any project specific or any design specific at all. What I'm looking at is history. So for the last 81 years, this has been the vision, the policy. I mean, really the vision for the city of Monterey to make that the extension of windows on the bay. I mean, it's, as it said, it's on packet page 80, which is Monterey's splendid beach provides a superb natural setting, which should be restored as nearly as possible to its natural condition. A foundation will then be established upon which all other planning for the city of Monterey can logically proceed. I think that's too critical to just say, it's not a very nice entryway to the city of Monterey. It's not per se, but that being said, it's a long-term vision. Long-term visions don't happen overnight. It's not a short-term vision. It takes significant time and it takes significant dollars. Just because the city couldn't come to terms today or recently for the purchase of that property doesn't mean it's not going to come to terms with other sellers of the property, or even that particular property at some point in time in the future. I mean, there's a whole economics that go along with this that, it's, again, long-term vision. We are 81 years into this. The city, I personally, any project that comes before me would need to be vetted as a particular project. I can't say that I would or wouldn't approve anything today or in the future, because again, we have to look at each project individually. But what I can say is that with 81 years of history, with the policy being that we should be limiting the scale and intensity of existing uses for those pieces of property, I can't see myself being swayed any other way. Now, again, I will look at each project coming forward at that time. But, in reality, this is a policy decision that is even bigger than the city council. I mean, it's one of these decisions that needs to go to the public. The public needs to be involved in any decision on this, on Window on the Bay, or this what is it, Site B or Priority B area, in order for the citizens to really be able to say, this is what we want. We shouldn't be coming, a project should never come to, at least my opinion, never come to the Planning Commission that is anything different than what is currently in place, without the citizens of the city of Monterey deciding we are going to change Priority B, and we're going to decide to change the vision for the last 89 years. I just can't agree to that. I mean, I guess it's 81 years. To me, the projects and the concepts looked fine. They might work any other place, but this is just the coastline and this piece of property is too important at this point in time. That's all I have to say.
I want to follow on by saying I agree. And if I were one of those citizens who got to vote, I'd be voting to extend the vision of 81 years ago to connect Sloat Avenue to the existing park by a park.
Comment, Mike Dawson. The grand vision is actually all the way down to Figueroa. When you consider that when we started on this trek, there was businesses all along there, and the city got grants and they got money from the state, and they bought those properties so that we could have a park, and we can do the same with the rest of it.
Thanks, Mike.
This is Terry Latassa. I agree with what's been said so far. All the commissioners haven't spoken yet, but this is a really substantial sort of challenge to a long-standing zoning tradition in the city. And I wanted to point out that this long-standing vision of the cities, that this part of Del Monte would have a different kind of use and a lower kind of structural development than other parts of the city. Just by coincidence, it also is appropriate for the sea level rise reality that we live in. Yeah. This FEMA would not frown on jurisdictions approving structures and major development in areas that are going to experience flooding in the future. And that's probably, in my sense, that's probably the biggest problem that these two projects would have on having any chance of at least this planning commission voting for it. And I'm pretty sure the city council. One last comment is the attachment 4 has a great analysis of consistency with the various LUPs and the master plan. And boy, there aren't many consistent boxes in that. There's a lot of inconsistency. And that's those, if you take those individual items, I think they're 16 or 18 of them or something. That's quite a hurdle to get over for an applicant, you know. So that's all of my comments. Thank you.
Dan,
Thank you. And we did get a public comment.
if you would.
Absolutely.
Line unmuted.
Hi there, you're on with the Planning Commission.
Okay. Good evening, Tom Rowley. Calling. I happen to have lived there in Monterey long enough to have been here when the window on the bay did not exist, and where there were numerous structures. I think the Planning Commission needs to say this whole idea, the whole concept of these two property owners needs to be rejected out of hand, and that needs to be forwarded to the City Council, that recommendation. I think whoever bought the tire shop at $12.99, quite frankly, as I'm in real estate, made a bad investment. And I think Jan Aldretti probably did good negotiating for the city. But it took a long time to acquire those properties on the existing window on the bay. One thing I've been very disappointed with very recently, the decision to allow 4-story buildings, as Mike Dawson mentioned, the window on the bay really does go all the way to Figueroa by Wharf 2. And you voted recently to allow 4-story buildings in that section on the window on the bay across. And so anyway, that was a very bad idea. You allowed that to go through previously. I hope you do not support the current proposals that are before you. These are totally out of line and should be rejected out of hand. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
You are the last party in the conference. You will be silent.
Okay, if you would, any further comments from members of the commission?
Yeah, Dan Fletcher here. I think it's hard even at a conceptual level to analyze the appropriateness of this project. One of the reasons why I brought up the sea level rise is I think that the city needs to have a firm vision and policy as to what they're going to do about that before they consider other built projects in an area that's going to be affected by sea level rise. It seems like sometimes might be getting the cart before the horse on that particular issue. I mean, I like the idea of residential use along transit corridors. I'm just not sure this is the most appropriate location for that project.
Thanks, Dan. Steve?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner comments about sea level rise and also about the use of the water corridor on the bay. One thing hasn't pointed out is that with 20 units or 40 units of apartments, we already have tremendous traffic circulation problems that we haven't been able to deal with, that go all the way back up to the Pebble Beach turnabout. And this would just add to that. When you look at attachment 4, all the inconsistencies, the incongruities, the desirability of the general plan as far as saving the bay for the general public, you know, I'm reminded of that old saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And that's how I feel. I don't think it's broke. I don't think we should mess with it. And I think we should send an exceptionally strong statement to the council that the Planning Commission does not want to mess with it.
Thank you. My comments are, in 1939, a group of people got together and came up with this plan that most of us didn't learn about till later, because I think it brought a lot of the value to the people who live here, who get to see an ocean instead of a row of hotels like a Miami Beach hotel row. Because that was what was going to happen here in the mid 80s if the current mayor and some other people didn't get together and put a kibosh to the hotels. But having that plan back in 1939 pretty well laid out this property, and all of a sudden now we want to change it. I agree with the other commissioners. I don't think we need to do that. First, and I also wanted to compliment that I thought that the concept for housing, good try, because we need it. But I don't think this is part of the vision that we need to pass on. If you look at the sea changes in Hurricane Sandy, what they did back there, that was living in close proximity to the ocean. Mother Nature has a bad habit of slamming people. And the idea that one of the things that most people don't know about is that the sewers got overrun by the water and the sand. And so now we're talking about putting up seawalls. But if the sea gets access to our sewer system, that whole part of Monterey is going to have sewer problems. So I would also agree that we need to make a very serious recommendation that we not change the concept as it stands. So based on that, I'll take a motion for the recommendation to council.
Chair Brassfield, before,
Yes,
may I interrupt? I do want to make it clear that it's not necessary for this body to make a recommendation to council.
Good.
So one of the options is to just give a clear message to the applicants that there is not an appetite for this policy change, and so that it should not be taking up council's time.
Okay, but if we give that, do they have 10 days to appeal it to council?
No.
This is no.
Good. They're good. Because if it's just a clear message, then I concur.
I so move.
Anybody have another comment? I see Hanson sitting there festering, so.
No, I don't have any comments. I just think that we don't have to do anything. So it's
Thank you.
just, it's, yeah, we shouldn't waste council's time all on, I think, until I do, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we should waste council's time with this one.
So be it. I'm not trying to give them extra work, but they are the ultimate policy board. So if they're going to watch our presentation, then they should get the idea if they really
What if I make a motion that we tell the council that the existing policy should remain the same? Can we do that?
Andy?
You don't think that's, Thompson, we should waste our time with that when it's been presented to us to give a recommendation to the council?
No, it hasn't been presented. It hasn't been presented to us to give a recommendation to council. This is a potential applicant driven process that is just a concept review. It's not, nothing is going to city council on this. There's no project to even recommend. It's okay. Basically, I mean, that's my personal take on it, is that it is just to provide guidance to an applicant on whether or not they should spend the time and effort and energy and money to move something forward when they know that it's either potentially doomed, it's dead, I'm not going to say dead on arrival, but it's very limited chance of being approved. So I don't want,
in all honesty, I don't even know why it's before us. There is nothing for us to vote on, and we are not policymakers. So why should we be even advising council on what to do unless they ask us?
I would suggest that one of the things that comes up is that there's an awful lot of money involved here by the developers. So I think that they're just trying to explore a little bit of if they have a chance.
Yep.
Yeah, as a person who suffers as an applicant from time to time, like Dan, this kind of thing can be really valuable for applicants to just get, what I'm hearing here is this pretty sharp, unanimous. There's not even one of these 7 commissioners who has an inkling of positive feelings about this kind of a project. So that's a really valuable process, I think, for the developers.
Thank you. So I think that we've resolved this issue for this time. And the only other thing I think we see on our agenda is any issues coming from staff.
I would like to bring up not an issue, but a forewarning or an invitation to consider some of the ADU information that will be shared soon. The survey results are ready to be shared, and that is going to council, and then it'll be brought back to you. And that is the flow of information that we're all more accustomed to and more comfortable with, quite frankly. So the policy guidance will be given from council to the planning commission to consider how we might draft our accessory dwelling unit ordinance.
Thank you.
Andy, let me ask you this regarding guest units or guest houses. They're not allowed to be rented, and they're not allowed to have kitchens. Is that going to be revisited regarding possible ADU, or is that just going to stay the way it is?
You know, that's a great question. I did get a couple of respondents, or we received a couple of comments from folks who have guest houses now. You're right that they weren't allowed to have kitchens. If somebody has the water credits to create a kitchen, probably best case scenario would be for it to be now considered as an accessory dwelling unit, particularly if they were hoping to rent it out. And that's an easy process that goes through our building department only. It does not involve planning. I think we need to consider what is a guest house going for. I think that should be part of the discussion for accessory dwelling units, and whether or not that needs to remain in our code. Maybe it doesn't make sense anymore.
Thank you.
Any additional comments from commissioners on?
So, Andy, when is that? There's some sort of a public hearing coming up. Can you restate that date?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you for that. It's September 1st.
Okay.
September 1st. And so it may be that prior to that date, we'll be putting out to the public our sort of aggregate survey responses. And then the idea is that within the staff report, I've been able to do some pivot tables and things like that, because there definitely seemed to be an appetite for a clear understanding of who's saying what. And we've gotten 318 responses to a survey that was just over a weekend. So we did pretty well, I think. And it's just, let me make it clear, that's not some mathematical formula that then we're going to base all of our ordinance on, or that even all of the discussion at council will be predicated on those survey results. That's really just taking the early temperature. I'm hoping that there's a whole lot of ebbs and flows and discussion and conversations, and that people begin to hear and understand each other's perspectives, and that it evolves to a robust conversation. If I could just make one point real quickly, and that's that there are other cities in this region who have decided to just rely on what the state law says, and that maybe because they weren't ready, willing, or able to have this robust discussion among all of the residents. And in Monterey, it seems like if we come together, we end up with a more with an ordinance that truly is reflective of the community desires as a whole. So I'm hoping that we can get to that place where we find flexibilities that speak to everybody's needs.
Thank you. Now let's go back to the previous question. Any other comments on other issues from the commissioners?
We do have another staff, I don't want to call it a presentation, it's not so formal as that, but we have gotten some feedback that some of our commissioners could be handling video teleconferencing slightly better. So I've researched some tips on how to look more involved, and how to just angle your camera, and kind of what to do in terms of like backlighting or that kind of thing. So because we've had, some feedback, we want to just kind of work on perfecting these processes. So I have a little note sheet that I wrote down. I can send this to you. I can type it up if that would help you. Just let me know, and I can provide that, no problem. So some of the tips that I found were try to avoid using windows in the background. That tends to create backlighting that tends to shade your face in ways that make it hard for the viewer to see. So that was a big one. Facing, instead of using the window towards like from your back, I found that it's better if you put the light, whether it's natural or a lamp, just directly in front of you, perhaps like behind your webcam, if that helps. It's best to look straight on and get that light coming at you from directly ahead. If it's coming from the side, that makes it difficult. You look kind of unbalanced and uneven, and that can be distracting from the viewers. Same with distractions in the background, whether that is the background itself or people or dogs or animals in the background, that kind of thing. So another big tip that I saw frequently was try to avoid background, anything distracting in the background, which includes sound. It includes, maybe if, for instance, everyone looks fine, but for instance, if your hair, like was sticking out like you just got out of bed, that could be a little bit distracting to the viewers. I don't want to like point out anything that we've specifically had. These are all general terms.
Distracts me.
You also do makeup?
Yeah. Actually, that was another one. One of the videos suggested wearing more makeup and suggested men to wear makeup. I'm not going to do that. I don't think we're publishing that broadly.
What about hats?
Hats. So anything that covers your face or makes anything like darker. If you have something that's above your head, it will create shadows on your face. And even if the light is coming from directly above, I look at it as kind of like if you were sitting in a seminar or in a class or just inside at all. I found that I think like the typical rules of courtesy involve not wearing a hat inside. So just anything. Oh, sorry. I believe Terry, you're talking or you're muted.
Oh, I'm being funny. Hats. What about wigs?
If you want to, as long as it's brushed down, as long as it doesn't look like you just woke up.
I'm being silly. Please proceed.
Thank you. I appreciate the lightheartedness. So there's also another good point that I saw repeatedly is thinking about your camera angle, the way that your camera is positioned. For instance, I'm going to move mine right here. If I have a laptop and I'm pointing it up at my face, you can generally see a lot of air, ceiling space up above. We don't want that. We want to see your face. And also if it's shooting down, it's kind of a photographer's trick that you just raise it up a little bit. So mine, I have my webcam attached to my computer on the top. When I have a laptop, I try to put it on something at home. Personally, I have like a desk that sits up higher. It's like a little thing, but you can use books or binders or anything, anything to get it up and looking a little more down at you, so we can focus on more of the people and your faces and not so much of like, for instance, the ceiling above you. Same with like angling it to one side or another. If I am sitting over here the whole time, that might be a little bit distracting. I'm also like not utilizing a lot of the space in the video. So that was another one, and a way to help that as well is, and this will help in looking a little more engaged. I have received comments saying that not all of our commissioners have appeared as if they were interested in the topics. And this is not just yours, this is other commissioners as well. I want to be vibrantly clear about that. And, this is for everyone. Is if you sit a little bit facing forward, that can show interest, and it's really hard to make eye contact with your audience if we're looking at a camera. So try to look at the camera, try to be as engaging as possible. That would really help. One of the tips I saw is like just to sit a little bit more leaning forward, and because I think if you're kind of leaning back and yes, we're comfortable, we're all in our homes, but we're still working. This is still work. So I saw a good tip just to put a little, like a couch pillow behind your back, just to enable you to look as if you're paying more attention. Yes, we all know you're paying attention, but the goal is also to look as if you're paying attention. That's really important too. So let me see.
I think we get it.
I think I covered all the bases. And if you want any of that typed out for you or anything, I'm happy to share it. I've been asked to share these things with you all, so thank you for listening. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jennifer. You know, I was going to say that the audio this afternoon was a great improvement. I don't know if that was just the luck of the people calling in, but the last one, it did sound like a lunar landing. Tonight was clear and good throughout. So thank you.
Thank you for that feedback. I really appreciate it. We are working consistently to try and improve these. We know that this is not the ideal setting or situation for us to meet like this. So we're really trying to make the best out of it and trying to make it as best as possible. So we appreciate any and all feedback.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. I just want to say that I can't recall the last time anybody wanted to see more of me. So thank you very much for that.
But it did kind of sound like Tom Rowley was in his basement. So any other issues that we need to address before we call and adjourn?
That was it. I do have the planning office update. If you would like, I just have to pull that up. Sorry. Sorry, thank you for your patience.
And Jennifer, the second one for the upcoming will no longer be true.
Okay. All right. So for the first reading, this is a follow-up to the August 4th City Council meeting. That's the only one we've had since our last meeting, or at least that we've had any planning items on. So we have the extended care facility through CHOMP. That was approved by council. The first reading was approved. It does have to go through 2 reading processes before that can officially be law. The second one was the resolution ratifying the order of the Director of Emergency Services. Oh wait, that was allowing city manager to change the permitting for the outdoor businesses, business operation, and that was approved as well. We have one tentative schedule item scheduled for the 25th PC meeting, and that is to discuss residential uses allowed in Monterey's specific plan. And that's it for the staff report.
Thank you. Andy, I have one question.
Sure.
The how are we coming on restaurant using the outdoors?
Oh, I think Jennifer, the piece that you just mentioned is coming up, right? It's coming along, but we haven't resolved it yet.
The reason I ask is that I've heard a couple of businesses ask if they could do outdoor stuff beyond restaurants.
That has been part of the conversation. So that isn't the first time I've heard that question. So I know that that's getting circulated and that's going to be part of the equation.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and my understanding is that K-rails are going to be part of the solution as well, because we take pedestrian safety very seriously. And while PG has had some success with their parklets, Lighthouse in PG is very different than Lighthouse in Monterey, and different than Alvarado in Monterey, and yeah, so we're going to make sure that it's done well.
And plywood and dirt is not as good as K-rails. So thank you. Okay, then if nothing else, I will call this meeting to adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.